John Kennedy had faced his share of battles, fierce debates on the Senate floor, heated media confrontations, and political storms that could shake even the strongest man, but nothing could have prepared him for the moment when the woman he loved most, his wife, Becky A., was humiliated in front of an entire crowd, and what he did next would leave every person in that room stunned into silence. It began on a humid afternoon in Baton Rouge. Job had just finished a long day at the Capitol, where tempers had flared over a controversial bill. He'd promised his wife he'd meet her at a charity gala for local teachers that evening, a night meant to celebrate kindness, not politics. Becky Kennedy was beloved in Louisiana, graceful, genuine, and deeply compassionate. While her husband wielded words like a sword in the Senate, Becky wielded empathy, quietly serving those the cameras never showed. The ballroom glowed with golden light and laughter. The state's top officials mingled, glasses clinking, music playing softly in the background. John was proud as he watched Becky glide through the crowd, speaking kindly to everyone, from waiters to governors' wives. But not everyone in that room shared that warmth. At one of the corner tables sat Margaret Dillon, a sharp-tongued socialite known for her cruelty disguised as charm. She had never liked Becky. Margaret came from money, old Louisiana money, and she despised that Becky, a woman from a small town, a school teacher before marriage, had risen to such grace and respect. When Becky approached her table, offering a kind smile and a polite greeting, Margaret saw her chance. "Oh, Becky," she said in a syrupy tone that barely masked her venom, "I must say, it's refreshing to see you here among such a broken bar refined company. It's not every day a senator's wife remembers her manners after marrying up, is it?" The words hung in the air like a poisoned dart. A few people chuckled nervously. Becky's face flushed, but she maintained her composure. "I believe kindness doesn't depend on where you come from, Margaret," Becky replied softly. But Margaret wasn't finished. She leaned closer, her voice louder now, ensuring others would hear. "Well, I just think it's admirable you still pretend to fit in. After all, not everyone can learn elegance overnight. Some of us were simply born to it." The laughter that followed wasn't nervous this time, it was cruel, the kind that comes when people want to belong to the wrong side of a moment. Across the room, John Kennedy's smile faded as he saw his wife's face. He'd been speaking to a group of donors, but now his attention was locked on the scene unfolding. His jaw tightened. The room seemed to shrink around him. He started walking slow, deliberate steps that made the chatter fade one by one. By the time he reached Becky's side, the ballroom had fallen silent. All eyes were on him. John placed a steady hand on his wife's shoulder and looked at Margaret, not with anger, but with a calm so deep it was unnerving. "Margaret," he began, his southern drawl slow and razor-sharp, "my wife has more grace in her little finger than most of us could learn in 10 lifetimes. She doesn't need to pretend to fit in. She fits in wherever there's decency, kindness, and respect, qualities that don't require a trust fund or a fancy last name." A ripple went through the crowd. Margaret's smirk faltered. John continued, his tone steady but filled with quiet power. "You see, ma'am, money can buy a seat at a table, but it can't buy manners, and it sure can't buy class. Becky didn't marry up, she lifted me up. She made me a better man, and anyone who can't see that might need a mirror more than they need a microphone." For a moment, the room was completely still. Then, one by one, people began to clap, softly at first, then louder, stronger. Even those who had laughed earlier joined in, guilt flickering across their faces. Margaret's cheeks burned red as she shrank in her seat, realizing her cruelty had backfired. Becky looked up at her husband, tears glistening in her eyes. She whispered, "John, you didn't have to." He smiled and took her hand gently. "Becky, when someone disrespects you, they disrespect the best part of me, and I'll never stand by for that." The applause filled the hall, echoing like thunder. For that one night, politics, power, and pride faded away, replaced by something pure, respect. As the couple left together, the air outside was warm, the stars stretching endlessly across the Louisiana sky. Becky squeezed John's hand, her heart full. "You know," she said softly, "you didn't just defend me, you taught them something." John smiled, looking at her with that same quiet strength. "Sometimes, Darling, the loudest lesson isn't shouted, it's spoken when the whole room's listening. That night became one of those rare stories people whispered about for years in Baton Rouge, not because a senator humiliated someone, but because he chose dignity over anger, love over ego, and truth over pride. And for John Kennedy, it wasn't about winning an argument, it was about showing the world that real strength isn't proven in how you fight, it's proven in what, and who, you choose to stand for. By the end of the evening, the message was clear, not just to those who had witnessed it, but to everyone who heard the story later. Respect is not demanded through power, it's earned through character. And that night, John Kennedy reminded the world exactly what that meant.